Hey, good evening. This is Meredith Lego, and my whole YouTube series is on Ascension science, which is nothing more than the mechanics on the ascension of consciousness. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about frequency and vibration and how that actually can allow us basically to expand consciousness as well. And the information that I'm going to be sharing comes through a channeling that I was able to do with Ascended Master Hilarion. And if you're new to this YouTube site or this video, basically, I would highly recommend that you go back to the beginning, in which I was able to get a lot of information on some of the fundamental building blocks of consciousness as presented from Ascended Master Hilarion. And I'm able to connect with him basically during meditation and sort of go into a Q&A of asking him questions and getting back answers. And so let me get to the content here. So I didn't have a question to tee this particular channeling off, but the content basically begins by saying the blistering waves of fire creates streams of consciousness. The coronal core of the sun generates the waves, which are pulses of frequency. The in-breath is contraction or vibrations, and the out-breath is expansion or oscillation rate. Inherently, both vibration and oscillation, or expansion and contraction, work together to evolve consciousness. So I'm going to pause there before I go on. Ascended Master Hilarion in the past has talked about frequency and vibration, so that wasn't new. But in this particular channeling, there was a new word that came up around oscillation, which is something that I had not heard. And he also referenced the concept of the in-breath and the out-breath a little bit more in reference to the sun. So I think in general, I think in past channelings I've done, basically the idea is that everything in, everything in the universe, if you will, everything from the smallest particle to the biggest universe, if you will, basically goes through cycles. And the sun, just like us, have the ability of sort of expanding and contracting. So even if you think about the breath, we're essentially breathing in and breathing out. And the sun does the same thing. The sun essentially goes through cycles. I don't know enough about the science behind it, but I have heard the idea, or the, I think in just generic literature, that the sun tends to go through an 11-year cycle where there's basically more solar activity going on. So basically what he's saying is that the coronal core of the sun generates the waves, which are pulses of frequency. And I know that it's basically different energetic frequency that's coming off. But what he mentioned is that the in-breath is contraction or oscillations, and the out-breath is expansion and oscillation rate. So let me say that again. The in-breath is the contraction or the vibrations, and the out-breath is expansion or oscillation rate, okay? So then he said both vibration and oscillation, or expansion and contraction, work together to evolve consciousness. Now I had to look up what oscillation was, because I hadn't necessarily heard that term. And I got a lot of mixed messages at first, just looking it up, let's say on Wikipedia or different physics sites. It seemed that oscillation and vibration were pretty similar, and I'm still trying to better understand the difference, but I'm just going to share with you what I learned. So one definition was that essentially, if there is a frequency that's very high, it's a vibration. So in other words, it's kind of something that's going back and forth very fast. And it's a frequency that's very low, it's oscillation. So they often tend to, in the examples that I'm finding, talk about a pendulum going back and forth. So it's kind of like a low frequency, kind of back and forth. Another reference that I saw is that vibration is up and down and oscillation is back and forth. So, if you're more interested in that, I would just encourage you to look it up. I think the first definition personally resonates more with me, which is higher frequency as being vibration and lower frequency as being oscillation. So then Ascended Master Hilarion goes on to say, through the perils of time, the experiences of day-to-day life generate an expansion and contraction of consciousness. It's through the lessons of experiences that one grows. The experiences, processing and integration of the experience back into the core of the being, so it is seeded into the etheric blueprint of the being's DNA. The extra benefit is the integrated experience is also seeded or interwoven into the species' morphogenic field, meaning that the entire species can benefit from the learning when the individual fractal's frequency match to unlock the code for information downloads. As I have stated in the past, this is why new innovative ideas can travel through the collective of humanity to different geographic centers without communication or technology. They are simply downloading from the source field by one being in the species, and the information can spread like wildfire via the morphogenic field. So pausing right there. So basically, he goes on to say that it's really through life experiences in which we have sort of an expansion of consciousness and a contraction of consciousness, an expansion of consciousness and a contraction. And that's happening through, every single day. We're going through unique experiences and lessons where something happens, we experience it, we sort of go through the experience, we process what happened, and then we sort of reintegrate back in to our seed, our DNA, our etheric blueprint, the understanding of that lesson so that it can be stored for the future. But what he's also saying is that when we do that, we're essentially seeding it into the morphogenic field. So every single species basically has a morphogenic field, which is kind of like almost like a source field that connects all beings in the species together. And through that, you can transfer information. So if you have a lesson, it's easier for that learning to be passed on to others in your species. And that was actually proven by several researchers, but it was most notable in the study of the monkeys that were on an island. And one of the monkeys, I think, started to wash, I think it was wash its nut and then maybe crack it open or something like that. But it was a behavior that the monkeys had not done, and this one female monkey started to actually wash her berry or her nut or something like that. And then over time, more and more in her group that she was with started to follow the behavior. And then somehow that behavior trait jumped islands and other monkeys in the same species began to all of a sudden wash their berries as well, or their fruit, whatever it is that they were eating. So similar studies have been shown of birds basically transferring traits across many distances when too fast for them to actually fly that distance. So that's an example of what was termed the 100th monkey effect. But we have the ability to do that too as species. And so that's probably why a long time ago, before there was global transportation or the speed of communication, innovations were popping up at different parts across the world, without the benefit of that technology transfer occurring through just movement of the innovation. So then he goes on to say that the interesting parallel for you to understand is that it only takes one unit, one fractal of consciousness, only one human, to download love, joy, and compassion for all to resonate with the frequency. Equally, it only takes one to download hate for many to resonate with the frequency of hate. In the process, the being always has the free will choice of how to feel, act, and then act on the impulse of inspiration. Equally, the innovative ideas can flood into the consciousness, but often only those with no fear or hesitation act, while many do not act due to ego override. Consciousness always finds a portal for evolution to continue forward. If one door is blocked, it will move to another for manifestation to form in particle space. So I think there was a couple of messages there. Obviously, it only takes one human to sort of light a fire for, either extreme of polarized emotions or frequencies, either love or hate. So obviously you have a choice of what sort of frequencies you want to put off into the world. But in doing so, you can actually create a resonance effect with others around you. And likewise, essentially, he brought up the idea of how innovation can spread quickly in the morphogenic field. And so therefore, if you've got an idea, it's really good to act on it quickly because it can be picked up by others. But one thing that he did say is that if, for example, there's an idea that basically is unlocked, so you've got a frequency to unlock sort of an information code to come into your awareness, your conscious awareness, and you don't act on it, but it might be the right time for humanity to have this knowledge, for example. So if one human is able to unlock the code for something, it could mean that it's time for humanity to basically have the information into the general collective consciousness awareness. So for example, fire, the development of fire or something like that, or the development of the wheel. And what they're saying is that, let's say that happens with one person, but that one person doesn't act upon the knowledge and actually put it into action. So put it into true physical manifestation. Consciousness will basically find another route for that information to come into form. So, if I wasn't doing this channeling and bringing certain information forward, consciousness would find another avenue for this information to get into the public. So that's kind of an example. So again, if you have an innovative idea, I think what that's saying is you better act upon it because it will somehow seep its way into somebody else, because it means it's time for its physical manifestation to make its way into the world. So just a thought. So that's really all that was offered on this particular topic. But it was pretty interesting to learn about that concept of expansion, contraction, and how it relates to vibration versus oscillation. So with that, hope you have a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye.